What's going on, y'all? Let's Be Real podcast, episode 7 of season 2, man. We're back at it. And look, got a good pod for y'all today. And look, I know we always start with the wine. I ain't gonna start with it today. I am drinking wine. So cheers to y'all. Reason we're not gonna start with it, man, same wine as we had last week. I'm finishing up this bottle. And so nothing really to talk about on the wine front. If y'all want to know about the wine, it's solid. I recommend it. Go back to last week's podcast right at the beginning, like we always do. You can check out the wine there. So, look, we're going to hop right into it, man. Look, we got a lot to go over. Obviously, we have our recap from last week. We have our games coming up from this week. We're going to get into our top 5 again. We're going to get into our bets this week, and then just a little taste of the NBA because we obviously had opening night last night. And so, y'all know, if y'all know me, y'all know I'm excited for the NBA. Like that's my sport. And so we definitely going to touch on some of that on the pod today. But first, man, let's go ahead. We're going to get into last week's action. And so, look, starting off, man, we're going to start off with the Niners and the Falcons. So, look, if y'all watched last week, one of my bets last week was the Falcons. 49ers spoiled it, man. I thought with the Fred Warner injury, the Bosa injury, I thought that defense was going to be a little rough, and I didn't think that, they could stop the Falcons enough to get that win. And look, I was wrong, man. Look, shout out to Robert Saleh. Um, man, he is a definite plus on the defensive side of the ball as that DC. And so, look, I think with this, man, obviously biggest thing we got to wonder about the 49ers right now is, are they legitimate contenders? And for me, I think it's hard for me to put them in that legitimate contender spot, obviously, man, because look, they're 5-2. They're obviously playing really well. 5-2 with their backup quarterback, which to me personally, I don't think it's a huge drop off between Purdy and Mac Jones. And look, Mac Jones was putting up some crazy numbers his first 3 games with San Francisco. Obviously, kind of coming back down to earth now. But to me, man, it's just, I think the lack of what they have defensively is going to come back to haunt them. I think obviously CMC is playing just out of his mind this year again, looking like 2 years ago CMC. I think you're going to see that regress back a little bit. And then we'll have to see what Brock Purdy looks like, man. Obviously, with the injuries to the toe, things like that, we'll have to see what that looks like. But to me, it's just, I think eventually when you talk about contenders, you got to look at what are they going to look like when we get into playoffs and they're playing other elite teams. And granted, I think with the NFC right now, I don't think there's any like head and shoulder elite teams, but I also don't think that you're going to get a Robert Saleh difference when you're talking about playing teams like the Bucks, the Eagles, and some of those other NFC teams, the Lions, teams that you'll see in the playoffs. And so for me, I think it's a great, it's great what he's doing and what they're doing with the injuries they have to some major players on that unit, on their units. But to me, it's just contenders. I can't put them in there because, like I said, I think that what's being made up by the coaching and the defensive coordinator and Shanahan, I think that's going to be somewhat neutralized when you talk about facing some elite teams with elite offenses. But again, shout out to them, man. Look, it's incredible what they're doing with, you know, 2 of their best defensive players out, their starting quarterback out, their best wide receiver out, arguably their second best and third best receivers being out a lot of this. And so, man, just kudos to them for that. Next, man, we're going to talk about a couple teams that are contenders and are looking good, man. We're going to start off with, look, the Chiefs, obviously 31-0 against the Raiders in 3 quarters. You know, Mahomes and the starters sitting in the before the third quarter ends in the full fourth. And look, again, it's just, if y'all saw the podcast last week and you watched it again, I had them at the number 1 spot. And the Raiders, it's the Raiders. I get that, but look, still a divisional game, and we've seen a lot of divisional games where good teams against bad teams is still close or they lose. And the Chiefs came out and made quick and easy work of them, stomped them, and you saw a definitive kind of push to get Rashee Rice the ball. He looked good, and he looked good in what he explained was he only had a very limited like amount of the playbook. So as he gets more integrated in that play, into that offense, in that playbook, obviously it opens up more for him. But it gives them that, again, that number one receiving threat in that intermediate, which again is only going to open up that those deep shots, open up the run game. I think that rookie they have, Brashard Smith, I believe is his name, but that rookie they have, the wide receiver converted to running back, I think they're going to start getting him more heavily involved in the run game, especially if you continue to see Pacheco struggle. And I mean, Kareem Hunt is what he is. He's there for the short yardage situations, but passing downs, I would assume you see Brashard. And again, just if Pacheco continues to struggle, if they don't add anybody, I would think that you maybe start seeing Smith a little bit more. But look, I mean, again, I think they're showing that they're the most complete team in the league right now, with their biggest struggles being running the ball and their kicking game, which, we'll see if Butker can kind of figure that out as we go in. And look, next one I'm going to say as, I don't know if contender's the right word, but kind of semi-contender, we'll say. The Patriots, man, look, 31-13 win versus the Texans. And look, Drake May seems like the real deal. I think obviously not the best quarterback in that division. That's going to go to Josh Allen. But you now have, if you're the Patriots, a guy who can go toe-to-toe with Josh Allen on any given Sunday kind of thing. Obviously, Josh Allen's a better quarterback, but Drake May has the ability. And look, we saw it against the Bills where Josh Allen's looked like he's kind of regressed a little bit back to the old Josh Allen where, he can have some duds of a game, some turnovers. And Drake May showing that he can play on an elite level. Again, the weapons are, we'll see. I know Booty has been a really good player for them and kind of emerged as a good wide receiver. You got Diggs there, who's been solid. Run game has been solid. Defense obviously has been good, and Vrabel bringing that culture and bringing that defense in. So look, I mean, if we're talking about a contender, could I see them winning the division? Absolutely. Could I see them winning a playoff game? Absolutely. Could I see them getting to the Super Bowl? Probably not, just from what they're going to have to go through. But I definitely could see them being on like that outside bubble of somewhat contention, man. And I think, look, what Vrabel's done in just a year, I mean, let's not forget, we are a year removed from them being one of the worst teams in the league, and now they're leading the AFC East. And like I said, I think they have a legitimate shot at winning that conference or winning that division, and, possibly winning a playoff game. Next, we're going to move to the NFC. Let's take a little trip over to my team, Eagles versus the Vikings. And look, win for the Eagles, good, get you back on track. Obviously, 28-22 over the Vikings. To me, look, was it an impressive win? No. Did the offense look better? Yes. But still leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, look, Jalen Hurts, he has these games every once in a while where it's just, if you just saw him play the Vikings this last week, you'd be like, wow, that's a top 2 to 3 quarterback in the league. And so look, shout out to him. He had an incredible game. AJ gotten involved, Devontae getting involved, Saquon obviously still struggling some. And again, but I'm still going to go back to the offense looks very, very simplistic, and even more so to the fact I saw a video was sent to me regarding the Eagles offense in which And shout out to you. You know who you are for sending me that video. Um, but essentially, man, they come out and line up in a very, very specific, kind of set, and it's a running play, whatever. And then they come out and they do the exact same set opposite, and it's the exact same run, just the opposite way. NFL defenses are way too smart for that. So again, just kind of something I've been kind of harping on the whole season is the simplicity of what the offense is. And that, again, just seeing that and seeing, random guy on social media being able to point that out and the issues with that. I think that's not solved from this game. And look, again, Jalen played great. Offense looked better-ish. But let's not forget, man, look, it was still a one possession game and a very losable game for us against a Vikings team playing with their backup quarterback who did everything he could to give the game away. And look, that the Vikings defense has over the last couple of weeks not been as great. I would have liked to see us do a little bit more. And so to me, it's not an impressive win. And then to kind of double down on it, you would think, okay, we went out, offense looked better. Here we go. AJ Brown again after the game tweets, and let me see because I want to make sure I get it right. Using me but not using me, using me but not using me is what he tweeted out after the game. And again, look, it's just it wouldn't be the Eagles if there's not locker room issues after a win or a loss. And so to me, it's just this is what it's going to be throughout the season. I can't see it getting any better. Like I said, maybe they do something to get AJ Brown moved. It's a lot of dead cap space, so I can't see how he's doing it unless, like I said before, unless AJ really starts making it uncomfortable in there. But again, I mean, look, a win gets you. It's a win, and I think it kind of avoids a big time catastrophe because if they would have lost that game, 3 straight losses, and losing that game, and how they would have had to lose it, I think you're talking about a total team implosion, and at least kind of staves off, the destruction of the locker room. And so, again, we'll have to kind of see how that moves forward with AJ. But look, get you back in the win column, and we'll see, what they can do against the Giants this week. Next man, we're going to stay in the NFC East. We got a NFC East matchup. Cowboys versus Commanders. And look, the Cowboys, 44-22, put it on them. The defense looked better, so I'll give them that. Came out, they were able to stop the run, able to really get to Jaden Daniels. Again, it's kind of tough with Washington because you're down Terry, you're down Debo. And so, you could see it in you heard it throughout the broadcast talking about it allowed when when you're talking about your third best receivers now your number one option, it allows those DBs to look a lot better. And so do I trust that this is the Cowboys defense we're going to see moving forward? I don't. I think they got, a good situation this week. And but look, that offense is something serious. And so I think when you look at it, can the Cowboys offense or can the Cowboys ride their offense to the playoffs? Because again, that's what it's going to need to be. And look, you get CD back, that offense is humming. Look, they're performing at a historic level right now. Like Dak, I think if you look at the numbers, he's outperforming Joe Burrow from last year, and Joe Burrow had an incredible season. So, do I think that's going to keep up? No, I don't. I think you'll see a little bit of aggression there, but look, that offense is going to be elite. And like I say, every week, if you're a Cowboys fan, you should be disgusted with what Jerry Jones has done as far as letting that defense, trading away Micah and a guy who's shown when you look at on field, off field, a guy who is an incredible difference maker for that team. Because this offense is Super Bowl caliber. Now, Dak obviously has his struggles in the playoffs, and you'd have to see how Schottenheimer looks in the playoffs. But I think that, I mean, the Cowboys, do I think they can make the playoffs? Absolutely. I think whenever you have an offense like that, we've talked about it. It's just, if you have an offense that can put up 40 on any given Sunday, you can win a lot of games. You can also lose a lot of games when you have a defense that can give up 40 on any given Sunday. But I think with this offense humming the way it is, I could definitely see them kind of squeaking in the playoffs as a wild card team. And again, from there, like I said, you can win any week with an offense like that. And so, could I see them maybe spoiling a team in the first round of the playoffs? Maybe. True contenders, I can't see that, just because, again, do I think the Cowboys offense is going to play historic levels of football for, you know, 3-4 consecutive games? I do not. Next, man, look, I owe an apology to this team. The Colts with the 38-24 win over the Chargers. And so, look, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put some respect on the Colts name now. I didn't have them in the top 5 last week. I don't think, and look, you're getting the respect right now. I don't think give it 4 weeks. I think we might be talking about talking about the Colts a little bit differently. But look, the team is solid. Daniel Jones is playing great, and that team is great as far as around Daniel Jones. Jonathan Taylor looks like the best running back in the league, arguably right now. The defense has been solid. Obviously got some issues in their secondary right now, a little banged up, but look, I mean, it's a great overall team. Do I think Daniel Jones keeps this up throughout the whole season? I mean, right now, I think I saw earlier today that currently the Colts offense is outpacing any offense in history. The Brady's top offense, the Chiefs' top offense, the Colts right now are better statistically than all of those offenses. Do I think that keeps up? Probably not. But probably. I do not. But look, as of right now, look, you get a big win over the Chargers. I know the Chargers are banged up, and like I said, I've already gone down the Chargers rabbit hole as far as what I think they are. But look, the Colts, man, they keep winning, and so eventually you keep stringing together wins. I gotta put a little bit of respect on your name. And so shout out to the Colts. Do I think they're going to keep it up? No. Do I think they are a Super Bowl contender? No. Do I think they're a legitimate team? Yes, I do. And look, we're going to move over to 2 teams that I do consider contenders at this point, and that is the Lions and the Bucks, man. So look, takeaway from this game is, from the Bucks standpoint, it not much, right? You've been playing with fire a lot this year, and your best receiver comes back, gets knocked out with a collarbone and a concussion. He looks like he's done for the rest of the regular season. Unfortunate for Mike Evans. Looks like we're going to get his streak of 1,000-yard seasons is finally going to break. I believe he's got the most in history right now. Double check that. But look, unfortunate for him. Obviously, that sucks, especially when you're talking about a guy who's always been available for the most part and always put together, these great seasons. And for the Bucks, it hurts because you lose your number 1 option. Number 2 option comes in with a hamstring and a Luka, and he just looks a little off. So, like I said, Bucky Irving's out. You got a bunch of guys out for the Bucks right now. So, look, you're 5-2 with kind of getting through this with a ton of injuries, having a 5-2 record. The rest of you got some tough games, but a lot of the season looks a lot of winnable games. So I don't think there's too much to take away from that. They just need to get healthy. But the Lions, man, look, the Lions needed a win. I'm glad they were able to get off Twitter and stop crying about referees and everything after last week and go out and get a win. So shout out to Detroit. But for real, look, they played great. They got back to Detroit football, which, look, Jahmyr Gibbs went crazy. Jared Goff made some throws. And look, they're going to go by how their skill position guys go. And again, we just kind of go back to what we talked about last week with them is if they're playing with a lead and they can sit there and hand that ball off to Gibbs and Montgomery and then let Jared Goff work off the play action, they are going to be a very tough team to beat. And so I think the defense, again, gave up what was it, 9 points to the Bucks. Again, that's a banged up Bucks team. Do I think if they're healthy, it goes a little different? Maybe. But take nothing away from them. Defense played great. Offense looked great again. And again, if they're playing with the lead, they're going to be a team that's going to be really hard to beat. And lastly, for our recaps here, man, we're going to end it with the last game of the week, the Seahawks and the Texans. Look, if y'all didn't stay up to watch this one, good game. Seahawks get the win over the Texans 27-19. And look, man, we got to talk about it. What's wrong with the Texans? Because this offense, you got the number one defense in the league. It's a Super Bowl caliber defense, but the offense has just been atrocious. And CJ Stroud has not been good. And to me, look, I was a big CJ guy. I thought he should have been taken first overall in that draft. But some of the knocks on him coming out were the processing information, things like that. And to me, it sort of feels like, now granted, people are going to come out and say, oh, it's his O-line. Oh, it's, this, that. But let's not forget, his rookie year, he had a terrible O-line. He's never had a great O-line. I think his rookie year, he had a bottom 5 offensive line in the league. And he played just fine. One of the best rookie seasons we've ever seen. I think last year, a lot of people chalk it up to like, oh, you get the sophomore slump, little regression there. But look, we're year 3 now, and it's continuing, and it looks like he's getting worse. To me, this almost feels like, it's similar to when you have a guy come in and you got no tape on him, and you see these guys come in, and because there's no tape on him, because you're not able to really game plan for him and practice for it, you see these guys, come in and have great first games, second games, whatever. And it's starting to feel a little like that, where it's, okay, there's a lot of film on him now. The NFL teams have started to pick up tendencies, and now it's looking a lot harder for CJ. And so you couple that with a bad offensive line, and now, you're talking about one of the worst offenses in the league, which is what they've been. And so, look, it's on CJ. He's got to be better. That offensive line, obviously, if it's better, it helps. But ultimately, this comes down to CJ. And is it unfair because he had such a great rookie season that he has now expectations of star quarterback? Maybe. But it's a situation he's put himself in. And you can't be mad about being put up as a star quarterback when you have one of the greatest rookie seasons we've ever seen. So, look, I don't think we can really take the Texans seriously at all. Luckily for them, that division looks like it outside of the Colts might be pretty bad, and we'll see what the Colts end up being. But looking at the flip side of it, man, look, it's time to maybe start taking the Seahawks seriously, because now, granted, not a great game from them offensively, but look, that defense is elite. Jackson Smith-Njigba is putting up best wide receiver in the league numbers right now, showing that he is a clear number one. Sam Darnold putting up great numbers. Obviously, 2 nights ago on Monday night when they played, kind of a rough game for him. But look, he's continuing what he did last year. And so, to me, look, I was not a big believer in the Seahawks. I didn't have them in the playoffs. I had them as one of the worst teams in the league because I thought we might see some regression from Sam Darnold. And it just has not been that. He's been great. Look, they run the ball really well, good O-line, elite defense. And so, to me now, what's going to come down to is the Sam Darnold we saw in the playoffs and at the end of the regular season when the games really mattered. Is that going to be kind of his MO moving forward, as far as, we look at him like in a lesser sense, a Lamar, where, you put together great regular seasons, but when the games really count, you play some of your worst football? Or is he going to be, like I said at the time, you know, first ever playoff run, first ever time really being in a situation where the games mattered in the NFL? And did we look at that as far as like, oh, a lot of quarterbacks in their first, really high leverage games, we don't always see them perform at the best, but then, you get that experience, you come back better. And so I think if, depending on which Sam Darnold you get, if it's that first one where it's, you're always going to expect him to kind of be an underperformer from the regular season and the playoffs, then I think the Seahawks are kind of going to be dead on arrival towards the end of the year and as we go into the playoffs. But if he can, sustain or even just play good football, I think the Seahawks are a legitimate team. I mean, they've got good weapons, elite defense, great run game. There's not a lot of holes outside of what can their quarterback be come playoff time. So, look, man, we're going to move into this week, and we're going to go ahead and start it off. We got Bears at the Ravens, man. And so, look, fair question here. Is this a must-win for the Ravens? And I think so. You go down to a 2-6 record, and let's not even forget the fact that it's Lamar's first game back. So you have Lamar back. If you lose a game with Lamar back to the Bears, to me that signals, because I don't think the offense is going to be terrible. So that means the Bears put up some points. And that means the Ravens defense is legitimately bad. Now we have seen, it looked like it showed some life, but if that defense is legitimately bad, I don't care what it looks like with Lamar. If they lose this game, you're looking at best 10 wins. Now, in that division, 10 wins might get you into the playoffs, but you almost have to run the table. And if you run the table, maybe you're playing good football, maybe the defense picks it up. But if you lose this game, my guess is the defense is what it is. It's a bad defense. And so I can't see you really going 10-7. And then I can't see you really, when you have to get to the playoffs and face some elite offenses, I don't know how you get enough stops. And so to me, this is a game the Ravens do need to come out. They do need to win this. It is a big game for them. You do have Lamar back. And so, this is a real kind of prove it game for the Ravens of who they are and who they are moving forward. And on the other side, man, look, can the Bears keep rolling? So, look, the Bears, obviously you're on a little win streak right now. Got a good win last week. And so, or your last game. And so, if you can get this win, again, I think they're a 10-7 team at worst. If you can get this win, one, it kind of shows you that Ben Johnson offense is starting to roll. Defense is playing well enough. And Caleb probably is continuing to make strides as a quarterback. And so I think if you're the Bears, you get this win, it almost kind of, again, it's tough to say because we'll see what Caleb looks like in it. But to me, to get this win, I think they're going to have to score because I think Lamar and the Ravens are going to score some points. So to me, you have to score. And if you have to score, that means Caleb had a good game, which means Ben Johnson is rolling as a head coach. The Bears are rolling. And to me, that makes them I would say almost a for sure playoff team moving forward. Next, man, look, we got the Eagles and the Giants rematch. So do we expect the Eagles to get a revenge game? Last time playing the Giants was the start of their kind of tumble in these losses. And like I said at the time, when they played the Giants, Jackson Dart's first game starting, I believe it was his first game starting. But look, the best quarterback out there was Jackson Dart. And the best running back out there was Cam Scatterbo. That can't be the case this game. And so you can't have Jackson Dart dancing on you again. Can't have Cam Scatterboo doing backflips in the end zone again. The Eagles need to take the momentum offensively that they just got from the Vikings and keep rolling. The only problem is you never know what Eagles team is going to show up. I think last week it was a very, very necessary win, and they knew that coming in. My fear here is that they kind of breathe a sigh of relief. All right, guys, we're back. And you see the Giants come out and punch them in the mouth again. Now, again, I think they have all the reason to come out and really put it on the Giants after the way the Giants treated them last game. But again, this Eagles team is just like this. They've shown nothing this year that makes me think that they can be consistent and keep any kind of momentum rolling from week to week. And so, again, I think this game, it's hard for me to say you got to get Saquon rolling because he just hasn't been able to get rolling. I think again, this year is going to. It looks as though it's coming down to Jalen Hurts' arm and can he make enough plays. And so, look, we'll see if he can kind of keep that momentum from last week throwing the ball. We'll see what AJ tweets out after this game. But again, I think another critical time for the Eagles where look, you have all the reason to go out and win the game, but we'll see what Eagles team shows up. Next, man, we got the Cowboys and the Broncos. So, look, this is great offense versus great defense. To me, man, again, like I said, I think the Cowboys, when you have an offense like that, you can go out and win any game. And I think with the Broncos, man, look, the game they had against the Giants last week, very, very, whenever you put up a historic comeback, you get the win, but I almost throw out the performance because you got to put 33 points up in a quarter. It's just not sustainable. And for the most part, Bo Nix has been very bad in the first three quarters of just about every game. And so for a team that, came into this year with Sean Payton saying is one of the most talented teams he's ever coached, and that includes Super Bowl teams, put heavy expectations on this team and on Bo Nix. And it's, again, I've said it over and over this year when talking about the Broncos, it's just unnecessary expectations. And Bo Nix has not lived up to it. Yes, did he have an incredible fourth quarter? He had a couple of incredible fourth quarters. Yes, he has. But this is a game, again, I think everybody expects Bo Nix to come out and have this great, great game against the Cowboys defense. And he's, the Cowboys defense is very capable of letting him do that. But at the same time, man, the Cowboys got a lot of weapons, and Bo Nix is going. I think Bo Nix, even with that great Broncos defense, I think Bo Nix is going to have to come out and put up some points. I hope he does. I picked him up in fantasy, but we'll see. Next up, man, we got the Packers and the Steelers, and this is going to be our last one for today. Look, Packers Steelers. Obviously, Steelers coming off a loss, and kind of a nail-biting loss in a game where a lot of people think they should have won. I had the Bengals in my betting line, just saying. But no, a game, a lot of people think they should win. I think what came out of that game is obviously the defense for the Steelers is not quite what we thought it was. Very, very big play reliant defensively. And look, offensively, I actually got to give it to him. Aaron Rodgers played really well. That offense played really well and just couldn't get enough stops against, the 30 targets Jamar Chase got. But look, Rodgers, again, going back against his former team, Green Bay, should have a little extra element. We know Rodgers, we know he, takes these kind of things personally, and I can see him coming out wanting to prove a point to Green Bay. And look, this is a big proving point for Green Bay and that defense. I think this is a game Green Bay, from their perspective, needs to really come out and stomp the Steelers. From a defensive standpoint, look, you need to get pressure on Aaron Rodgers. He gets the ball out quick, but you need to get pressure on him. And you really need, this is a game where I think this defense needs to really flex that it can be this great elite defense that we think it can be after a couple weeks of really disappointing football. And from the offense, look, Jordan Love, again, with this Steelers team, they're very big play reliant. I think this is a game where he needs to come out, and this is kind of that vintage what I've talked about with Jordan Love and the Packers, where it's hard for me to believe in him. This is a vintage game where I could see Jordan Love losing it by just putting the ball in harm's way. Because while I don't think the Packers defense is, or not the Packers, while I don't think the Steelers defense is good, they are opportunistic, and if you give them chances to get takeaways or fumbles and things like that, they're going to get it. And again, Jordan Love is going to be kind of the deciding factor on how far these Cowboys go, whether he decides to give away games or if he's careful with the football. And so I think, look, the Packers have the weapons where they can really do some damage against that Steelers defense. But Jordan Love's got to be smart with the ball. And so I think as long as Jordan Love's smart with the ball, they should be able to win this game. They should win this game. And like I said, this is a game where the Packers defense really needs to flex and show that, yeah, we gave up a lot of points to Jacoby Brissett, and we're in a game with him and the Cardinals. But when we play what's perceived as good elite teams in the NFL, we can turn it up and be one of the best defenses in the league. And so with that, man, look, we are going to get into our, oh, you know what? I apologize. We got one more to talk about. And so we got Chiefs Commanders. This one's going to be a little bit different because not really going to talk about the Chiefs too much. This is going to be more so just a Commanders talk on here. And just, again, as somebody who had them going to the playoffs, it almost seems like we should have seen this coming. Jaden Daniels, once again, out with what's looks like a hamstring issue. Not a long term, but he is going to be out. So you're going to have Mariota again. And this just kind of goes to, I think we all got enamored by the Jaden Daniels from last year, having these great comebacks and these great performances. I fully expect, obviously, them to lose this week without Jaden Daniels and without with Mariota starting. And we'll see kind of what their weapon situation looks like. But to me, again, this is kind of one of those situations where I think a lot of us got fooled, where you see this rookie come in and put up, like I said, this great season last year. But one of the knocks coming in, slider frame, mobile quarterback. We typically see some injuries with that, which we've seen this year. And then kind of what we typically expect from a team who has a lot of comeback wins, a lot of close wins, one-score wins, that bit of regression back to the mean, where now those comebacks and those one-score wins are turning into losses. Couple that with Jaden Daniels injuries, and you're looking at a team that's in a rough spot. And so, look, I think Jaden Daniels is going to be a good quarterback still? I do. Do I think the Commanders are going to be a good team, moving forward? Probably. But again, a lot of it's going to come down to the health of Jaden Daniels, who, again, slider frame, and say what you want about last year, whether he should have been the number one pick over Caleb or not. Caleb's had better availability, even with maybe not as great of performances. And at the end of the day, the best ability is availability. And so we'll see what the Commanders can do. And, obviously never wish injuries on anybody, especially somebody like Jaden Daniels, where, dynamic quarterback, lots of fun to watch. But I think we are kind of watching the Commanders regress back to what we all kind of thought they would be last year. And so with that, now we're gonna move into our top 5 teams heading into what week are we in? Week 8? Yeah. And so top 5 teams coming into week 8, man. Look, at the top, we still got the same team. Number 1, the Chiefs. Like I said earlier, man, to me, they look like the most complete team in football as far as offense looking great, defense looking great. When your biggest issue is your run game, if you're quarterbacked by Patrick Mahomes, it means even less to me. And so now I do think they do need to figure out their special teams. That has been an issue this year. But again, to me, they in a year where there doesn't look to be a full-on complete elite team on both sides or in all 3 phases, the Chiefs to me are the most complete team. Number 2 is the Rams, man. Look, Rams had a really good win against a defense that looked to be really good. So against the Jags, defense played well. To me, it's it's hard because you played against Trevor Lawrence, who can have these great games, but can also have these duds. Looked like he had a dud. Now that might be just because the Rams defense is great, but I think the Rams, that offense, again, humming, great weapons. Defense looks really, really good. And so again, for whatever reason, their biggest issue is their kicker. And so again, another team where looking really good in 2 phases, and special teams leaves a little bit to be desired. But again, doing that against a defense that we all perceive to be very good, Rams at number 2. Number 3, we have the Lions. So Detroit back in the top 5. Back in the top 5? I think they were in the top 5 last week. But anyways, up to number 3 for the Lions. Like I said, looked like they kind of got their mojo back. They're going to get, obviously, their suspended players back next week. And I think obviously the culture there that Dan Campbell set, offense looks good when it's looking good. Defense looks good. I think, not much more you can say. They went out, put it on a Bucks team that was injured, so it's hard for me to really have them leap too much, but Lions at number 3. Number 4, I told y'all I was going to put some respect on them. Number 4, we got the Colts, man. Now, like I said, do I think in 3-4 weeks they're still going to be in the top 5? No, I don't. But at this moment, they are a team that is playing great. They beat good teams. They beat bad teams. And it's hard to put any real holes in this team other than the fact that they're quarterbacked by Daniel Jones and they're on a historic offensive pace. But at the moment, through 7 weeks, that's who they are. And so I got to go with who they are at this moment. And so Colts at 4. And number 5, look, we're going to play. It's going to be the Eagles. Passing game looked a lot better this week. I had them at number 5 last week, kind of in a tie with the Bills. Bills didn't play this week. Eagles didn't look extremely impressive, so they stay at 5 for me. And look, I know the Bucks are a team. I think I had them at 2 last week. I have them now out of the top 5. They're a team where if they were healthy, they'd still be in the top 5. But because they're not healthy, it's hard for me to put them in there when I think they're kind of vulnerable right now. And so they are a top 5 adjacent team, but I know people are going to talk about, the record, and you got the Chiefs, but the Bucks record is still great. That's why. And so lastly for the NFL, man, we are going to move into our bets this week. And look, I'm going to be honest with y'all. I don't love the bets this week. I'm thinking we're going to probably have a 3-2 week. Look, I felt good about the ones last week. We had a 3-2 week. And so this week, we, like I said, not feeling great, but look, we're going to go with first one, 49ers plus 1.5 versus the Texans. This one is simple. I think the 49ers are better. I think, I think you're looking at the Texans, who have an incredible defense. I think the 49ers have a good enough defense, especially with Robert Saleh coaching that side of the ball, that they are going to give that Texans offense, which had problems with everybody except the Baltimore defense, I think they give them some serious problems. And so I think it then comes down to, I think it comes down to the offenses. I don't think the Texans can really put up too many points. And I think the 49ers, I just believe in Kyle Shanahan more than I believe in the Texans being able to score. So we go 49ers there. I think they can win outright. Next one, man, Cincinnati -6.5 versus the Jets. The Jets don't know who they're starting at quarterback. It looks like it's going to be Tyrod Taylor. Garrett Wilson, still issues with injury, and so not sure if he's even going to play. And as bad as Cincinnati's defense is, the Jets' offense with Tyrod Taylor, with Justin Fields, whoever it is just that much worse. I think at least with Justin Fields, you get the kind of dynamic quarterback that he brings, even though, it's been pretty terrible for him. With that, I think the Jets defense is not what it used to be. I don't think it's a great defense. So I think Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Joe Flacco, I think they put up some points that I just don't think the Jets can keep up with. So that one will go Cincinnati -6.5. Next one, we're going Bears +6.5 versus the Ravens. Again, this one I think is more so just I think the Ravens defense is really bad. I think Ben Johnson's going to scheme up a great game, and I think Caleb is going to have a really good game against a bad defense. The only thing that worries me with this one is I think the Ravens can put up a lot of points. So I think this is going to be a shootout, and with that, you're giving me almost a touchdown against the Ravens defense. Again, that's the one I got to take that. Next one we got is the Cowboys +3.5 versus the Broncos. This one, I think Bo Nix has been so bad through 3 quarters. I don't see him putting up another 33-point fourth quarter, even if the Cowboys defense is bad. And look, you're giving me the way better offense, and I'm getting points with them. I think the Cowboys probably win this game anyways. And so for that, I'm going to take the Cowboys +3.5. And lastly, man, we got Packers -3 versus Steelers. Again, this one I just need Jordan Love to play a clean game. If he plays a clean game, I don't think the Steelers are going to be able to keep up with the Packers. And so I'm laying a field goal on it. To me, I think the Packers win by more than a field goal. And so with that, I'm going with Packers -3. And look, man, lastly, like I was talking about, so we're done with the NFL. And we got a little time here. We're going to talk about the NBA and opening night. So we're going to do like we did last year. Yeah, just last year, right? Yeah. Going to do like we did last year where we're going to have a full NBA episode. Working on that right now. But definitely just want to touch on opening night, just some stuff I saw. And we're going to start off with the first game, OKC and Houston. And look, OKC, defending champs, goes double overtime with Houston. To me, man, I know if you're Houston, you're looking at this like, tough loss. To me, it's very, you got some things that are very encouraging, right? Şengün, my man went crazy. 39, 11, and 7, 5 from 8 from 3. First off, if Şengün has added a legitimate 3-point shot to his game, that changes a lot of things for the Rockets. Because you're looking at a guy who is, again, kind of baby Jokic, does everything offensively. Adding that to his game could be incredible for him, could really open up a lot of his kind of his kind of go-to moves as far as that drive in to a spin move. I think that opens up a lot for him if you then have to respect him as a 3-point shooter. Some other things I noticed, man, I thought Kevin Durant, look, he's proven that he can kind of be dropped in anywhere and work. But when we've seen Kevin Durant teams struggle, and where I think we're going to see a lot of the Rockets struggling, is no point guard. And so, we kind of saw it. I like the idea of Amen Thompson. And if you were watching a game last night, you get Amen Thompson at the point, KD at the 2. Um, they went double big with Şengün, Steven Adams, and then you had uh, their third year guy at the 3. Can't think of his name right now. See his face. Anyways, biggest starting, tallest starting lineup in NBA history, averaging, I think it was 6'10" was the average height of that starting lineup. And so a lot of stuff you can do, obviously, with a team that's that big with a man at the point guard. The only problem is, and it's what we saw in Phoenix, right? When it's why Phoenix went out and tried to get a point guard after that first year, is you can see that when things were kind of tight as you get towards the end of the game, they don't really have a guy who can go in and initiate the offense. Amen Thompson is a phenomenal athlete. If he can get any kind of sort of jump shot, he is going to be one of the most, he's going to be a top 5 player in the NBA, but he's not a point guard. And so Houston is really, really going to be hurting from what I can see with the loss of Van Vliet. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they try to make a move to bring in some kind of point guard. But it's like I said, I see a lot of similarities to when KD was with the Suns that first year, where you can see the offense kind of get stagnant just because you have a bunch of scorers kind of just standing there watching each other. And so, again, that's going to be an Ime issue where he's going to have to figure that out, or it's going to have to be a front office issue where you go in and you find a point guard who you can trust to come in and run that offense. But again, a lot of good to take away. Look, you took the defending champs, double overtime on a game where Kevin Durant didn't play really well. Now, can you expect, a 39, 11, and 7, 60% 3-point shooting game from Şengün every night? No. But do I think he's looking like he's going to have a really good year? Yes. Do I think KD is going to get better? Yes. And so, I think Reed Shepherd is another guy where it kind of looks like that might have been a miss. We'll have to see how that kind of plays out. But yeah, he looked a little rough in there. So I think, again, good signs for the Rockets, but I some things where I just see a lot of similarities to that Suns team where they just need to get a point guard in there. And lastly, man, look, Golden State versus the Lakers. Obviously, no LeBron, out with the sciatica. But I want to just start off on the Golden State side. Do I really think Golden State are contenders? And no. To me, I don't. I think it's a good win by them versus a Lakers team that, again, down their second best player, still trying to figure it out. But to me, it's just, I think they lack size still. I think, again, never wish an injury on anybody, but to hope that an older Jimmy Butler, an older Draymond, who Draymond, doesn't really, not really an injury history, but an older Steph, do I think that they're going to play 65 games, 60 games? I'd be surprised if, you have Steph and Jimmy play 60 games just because of, getting kind of beat up through the season. And so to me, I think that means they're probably at best a play-in team again. And I don't believe in the piece there. I think obviously Steph is still great. Jimmy is great when, he's playing at his best. Draymond's still doing what he's doing, obviously doing everything, all the little things on the court that you love. But to me, it's just, I can't see them, if they make the playoffs, getting very far. And on the Lakers side, man, obviously, you're down LeBron, you lose by 10. Game kind of got blown open there in that third quarter. To me, some of the issues I'm seeing are, one, awful job by the Lakers front office in putting this team together. I think I said that in the offseason when we saw some things. But look, they've put a team together where you don't have much shooting, you don't have much athleticism around Luka, who that's been the blueprint for every team that he's had that succeeded. Coincidentally, it's also the blueprint that you've had for LeBron with every team he's succeeded, and the Lakers have still yet to put a team together that can have those elements. So to me, obviously, that's a big issue. And again, I talked about it when they first signed him, or when it was first kind of talked about. But the DeAndre Ayton thing, I don't know where everybody got this idea of him being this incredible rim running lob threat. Maybe it's just because they didn't really watch him too much. But I think last night showed you the kind of player he is. And when he sets that screen, he more so drifts to that little mid range area. I think, again, it's just not the kind of big that typically you see Luka or LeBron play with or Reeves play with. I think those three guys, ball in their hand in that pick and roll, a rim running center, and I'm not a big fan of his, but like a Jackson Hayes has always been where Luka, LeBron, Reeves are at their best. So I think the DeAndre Ayton move, again, I didn't like it to begin with. I think now it really kind of, everyone else is kind of seeing how kind of clunky that fit is. I think this is a team, again, I think we'll see if they make moves at the deadline. They've kind of seemed more so that they're kind of punting this year to be ready for 2026. Again, I think that move, we'll see how that move is kind of looked at based on what LeBron looks like this year. If LeBron looks like a top 10 to 15 player in the league still, it's going to be a really bad move because you're wasting a year with a top 3 player in the NBA in Luka and a top 10 to 12-ish player in the NBA in LeBron. Typically, if you have two guys in the top 12, you should be contending. If we do see a major fall off, then, the Lakers will be justified in saying, hey, we're waiting until 2026. But again, I think the only thing I think that they should have been worried about coming into this year in playing for 2026 was, how's Luka going to feel about not trying to really full on contend? He signed a brand new extension, so they've got that locked up. So again, Lakers, it's kind of, there's a no lose for them in that situation. But again, I think how it's perceived by Lakers fans, and I'm saying Lakers fans, not Kobe fans, and it's really going to just be determined by what LeBron looks like this year and how they look when they're whole. So look, man, with that, we are done with this episode. As always, appreciate y'all. Let's Be Real podcast, episode 7. Appreciate y'all as always. Look, go in, interact with our social media, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell on YouTube, get in the comments on YouTube. As always, appreciate y'all watching, and we'll see y'all next time.